Good evening, Broncos Country. What's up, guys? It's another Friday night of the Denver Bronco Roundup. I'm your host, Trevor Salzman. Keith Brugman is not with me tonight, but who is with me is, you know him, you love him, Mr. Judge, Jody Moncrief. Jody, how you doing on this great Friday evening?
What's up, everyone? Football is finally here. Sunday, everything starts.
Absolutely, everything starts, Jody, and we're very excited to get this going, and also excited, Mr. Ernie Mays coming in here. Ernie reminding us we're up a little bit past time, a little bit, for to come on. So thank you, Ernie, for chiming in as always and just being great. Then we got Scott coming in here and saying, "Good evening, Broncos posse." Good evening to you, Scott. I appreciate you joining us yet again on another Friday night. Paul said, "Is this real life?" Well, I'm not sure, what you mean by that. Please end up explaining that a little bit. We got Mr. Kenny Patrick, as always, the stepfather. Good evening, fellas. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday to you as well, Kenny, and hoping you having a great time at work. We have Mr. Michael Ronquillo coming in here and saying, "Good evening, Trevor and Jody." Good evening, Michael. We really appreciate you being here, as always. And excited to get into it. We have Mr. Roy Osborne coming in here and saying, "Rocket Man and the Judge, one more shift and I get to go home." That is awesome. That is very, very awesome, Roy. Excited that you're able to come home and excited that you're able to tune in. And Paul comes in here and says, "JK, woo!" He does the whole Albert woo thing. No one does it like Albert. But Judge, we had some news today from Sean Payton, you coming in and announcing who will be the starter come Sunday for the Denver Broncos. Why don't you kind of explain your thoughts and your opinions on Jarrett Stidham being named the guy, at least right now, for your Denver Broncos?
It was to be expected. I don't really have a problem with that. It's week one. He also did say that he hopes to get Nix some reps with the ones, and he came out willingly without being asked that Nix would start game two. I think game two is your big game. With only 3 preseason games, it also allows you. I mean, we got scrimmages with Green Bay next week before we play them. I think there's no need to rush him to start this first game. It doesn't really mean anything. And like Peyton said, look at the depth chart. He didn't put very much thought into it. So if Nix can get a couple reps with the ones and get out, I just don't want to see him playing behind second, third string linemen. That's where he can get hurt. But I don't think this means anything. All signs are in the past that your second game now with only 3 is your big game. And with him being announced so early, I think he gets all the reps next week. And still think all signs lead to Bo Nix starting week 1. But we'll see what Stidham does.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Jody. I think the biggest thing, one of my biggest takeaways is, and I think this is, from the beginning, I think if the Broncos weren't going to have an established franchise quarterback in place yet, or just a proven veteran yet, they can be that starter. I think this is always going to happen with Jarrett Stidham. If Jarrett Stidham was going to make this roster through the offseason, I do think he would have been named the starter in week 1 in the preseason. That was Sean Payton's guy. Remember, the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton went out there this last offseason and signed Jarrett Stidham to a 2-year, $10 million contract to be Russ's backup. Now, during the ties over a year later, Jarrett Stidham is at least the starter for now in the preseason. He'll get the first chance to kind of show what he has. And from just my opinion here, this is probably Jarrett Stidham's last, real chance to be that guy, right? I mean, I don't think he's going to get another chance to, just kind of prove himself as a starter in the NFL. So I think he's auditioning for the Broncos, but I do think that he's auditioning for other teams as well, just like many of these other players are. So it shall be interesting what Jarrett Stidham's able to put out there. And, I think the chemistry with those other guys also has something that's very interesting to put out there. But not very interesting is our posse. We got Miss Pearl Heater coming in here and saying, hi, all. Hey, Miss Pearl, I hope you're doing well and excited. Hopefully all those fires are gone over there. We got Michael Ronquillo saying, hi, Pearl. Michael's also saying hi to Kenny. And Kenny's coming in here saying, I know it's only preseason, but enough is enough. Why play Nix with backups? Drew Lock got hurt yesterday with backups blocking. Hendon Hooker got a concussion with backups. Play him with the starters or not at all. Jody, kind of explaining that a little bit. Do you think that Kenny's on the right track with what he's saying here?
I agree to a point, but I think there's enough position battles that he's going to get reps with ones, and the big thing for me is the O-lineman, and you got some battles there. I don't know how long you see Nix. You might not see a lot from Nix this game. You might see him a few, maybe one or two series with ones, and maybe the same amount with some twos, and that's it. I think they want to get him a full week with the ones next week and get him ready for week 2.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes 100%. I think you're 100% on the right track, Jody. I do think that Nix. I want to pump the brakes on Nix a little bit. He still has to go out there and earn that. So, Kenny, to your point, I do think that, yes, you are worried about that. But, again, it's a game of football at the end of the day. Anybody can get hurt at any time. With Bo Nix, I think it's important for him to go out there and show that he belongs first and foremost. The hype is there. Of course it is. He was, he's a first-round draft pick. But here's the thing. And this is the reason why I don't think Sean Payton is just giving him the job. He wants him to earn that job. He wants him to prove himself. And I think that's what Bo Nix is going to have to do. And I want him to do that before I'm worried about him getting hurt. Again, Drew Lock situation, that's just something that happens, unfortunately. And hopefully Drew will be better and he will be healthier down the line. But I think with the Broncos, you can't sit there and worry about Nix getting hurt, with this backup offensive lineman up there because the other team is also playing backup. So it's something that we need to keep in mind here. We got Michael Ronquillo sending stars here. Let me get to Michael's comment here. Good evening, Trevor and Jody. Again, Michael, thank you for sending stars. Appreciate you working with me. I have to get it on my phone here. StreamYard is not letting me see it. So thank you for being patient with us as always. And then thank you for the stars. Really, really appreciate that as always. So we got, Michael got your stars here. Again, appreciate it. Roy says, Stiddy the stud. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, hopefully when he puts on film and going out there on the field, actually playing in games, you'll see a better version of Jarrett Stidham than when last seen him playing and with the Las Vegas with the Raiders, excuse me. So I think that we definitely want to see a better Stidham there. Phil McLaughlin coming in here and saying, good evening, Rocket Man and Judge. Will Vele make the team? If so, who is the odd man out in the wide receiver room? Jody, I'll let you take that question from Phil. And Phil, if you sent stars, I really, really appreciate it. If not, we really appreciate your question as always. Again, be patient with me as I'm trying to find them on the side here. Jody, please answer Phil's question right there.
The one guy I've kind of been down on is Tim Patrick. It doesn't sound like he's had a lot of explosive plays there. And if you go back to when he was healthy, they said him and Cortland Sutton were mirror images of each other. Do you really need that a lot? You've got big bodies in Little Jordan Humphreys, Brandon Johnson. So Tim Patrick, for me, Tim Patrick's going to have to prove something in these preseason games. Not only can he stay healthy, but is he explosive? Can he make big plays? I think he possibly could be your odd man out.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Again, Phil, thank you for sending stars. I just seen that now. We really appreciate you sending stars as always. And again, thank you for the question. My 2 cents on this is, I just want to see. Let's see what Vele can do on the field first and game action. I think game action and practice are totally different things. I'm glad he's going out there and really pushing for a starting job or a role on this team, but and in practice and making these big catches and whatnot and impressing the media and the fans. But let's see this in game. I want to point that out first. That's the first point I want to make before we go saying, well, maybe Tim Patrick will be off this roster, just a different veteran wide receiver who has proven themselves yet. Vele, let's be honest here, he has not proven himself yet in the NFL. Let's see what he can do throughout the preseason before we go and say, well, maybe this veteran's going to be off this team and whatnot. Because I do think the Denver Broncos, and I've heard Tim Patrick's name come up quite often, as this may be a guy that may not make this roster. Keep in mind, I think last year before he got hurt, I do think Sean Payton had big plans for Tim Patrick. I don't think over a year's time, yes, you want to be really very, you want to be very, how do we say this, cautious with Tim Patrick because he's hurt and he is that guy that kind of gets hurt quite often. But for me, he's so guy that when he's healthy, he's very talented, and maybe he can be that guy who emerges in this offense when and if he's healthy. In my opinion. So thank you, Phil, for the question. Really appreciate it as always, and appreciate you sending stars. Got Mr. Kenny Kirkpatrick coming in here and saying, is Stidham or Nix more important? Jody, I think I know where you're going to go with this one. Again, so a little B here. I'll just say this. Do you think it's more important for Stidham or Nix, just player-wise, to have to win this starting job? Who has more pressure on either one of them? Because I think I know your answer is going to be it's going to be Nix is more important. Of course it is, but who has more pressure maybe on them in the preseason to be the starter?
In the preseason, I think Stidham does because he is in his 6th year now. It's really now or never. I think this is his last real shot at getting a starting job. So I think all the pressure's on him. Nix was taking 12. He knows that if he's not the starter right away, he's got time. They invested a lot in him. They're not just going to bypass him. They're going to give him a real shot. Whether that's week 1, which I think it will be, or if that's week 4 or 5, he's still going to get plenty of playing time this year and get reps.
Yeah, I agree. I do think there is some sort of pressure on Nix, though, because he is 24. We have to remember that he's not 21. He's not Drake May. I don't think you can sit Nix a whole year. You're not probably drafting him to sit him a year. Just knowing that how many games he played at the collegiate level and just what he brings as far as his floor. I think he has one of the higher floors of this past year's draft class from the quarterback position. So I think with Bo Nix, I do think there is some sort of pressure on him because he's one of the older rookies from this last draft class as far as quarterback from the quarterback position. But I do agree with you, Jody. I do think that Jarrett Stidham is a guy that has a lot more pressure on him as, again, like I just said earlier, he's a guy that this is probably his last chance for him to be a starter or be in that kind of conversation to be a starter going forward. So I absolutely do agree with you, Jody, on that one. And Kenny, Bo Nix is definitely more important. I know you're not so high on Bo Nix, but he is still more important. And then Kenny says he agrees with Michael. Michael says Nix is more important. Then Michael Ronquillo comes in here and saying quarterback Zach Wilson will start the 3rd NFL preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. Real quickly, Jody, what's your opinion on Zach Wilson? There's there pressure on Zach Wilson to perform during the preseason? Again, he's likely out, in that quarterback competition. He's the 3rd guy in the room. Teams often don't keep 3 quarterbacks in their roster. Never require him. They give up a 6th-round pick to get him. Do you think, that being said, from everything you've heard of Zach Wilson to this point, is there pressure on Zach Wilson during the preseason as well?
No, I don't think there's a ton of pressure on him. I think if you go off of what a lot of people say, this is a rehab year for him from all the damage that was done in New York. So I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him. I think Denver's going to try to. I don't know. It's tricky. If you only keep 2 quarterbacks, can you keep him can you get him back on practice squad, or will someone claim him? Or can you do that with Stidham, or do you have a better chance of getting rid of Stidham and getting him back on practice squad? Um, I don't really like the idea of keeping 3 quarterbacks, but you might have to in this situation because I don't think Stidham's back next year regardless. So it's tricky, but I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him because he knows what's in front of him, and this is a year to learn and rehab with coaches that are proven. He never had that in New York.
Yeah, so and again, I agree with you to a point, but I'm going to sit here and say Zach Wilson does have pressure on him a little bit. And I'm on why I say that is because I think he needs to go out there and he needs to ball out against these third stringers out there. These other guys that may not be playing football here in a year or so, or just even after the preseason, these guys are going to get cut because they're not going to be able to make a 53-man roster. Zach Wilson's a former first-round draft pick. I do think he is going to have to perform and should perform very well against these third stringers. And if he's not, then I am concerned about him being on this roster going forward. And to answer your question, Jody, I don't know that he does get is able to make it to the practice squad because I don't know that he will fall through waivers. He's a former first-round draft pick, and I think some team will take a chance on him. So I think the only way, in my opinion, right now, before we even seen Zach Wilson take a snap, in my opinion, I think the best chance the Broncos have of keeping Zach Wilson is if they keep 3 quarterbacks right now. But I do think there is pressure on Zach Wilson to perform like many other players. I mean, again, we're kind of looking at this Broncos roster from afar. There's not a lot of guys that can just sit back and just kind of not do anything during the preseason. All these guys are going to have to perform. Maybe you have 2 guys in Pat Surtain and Quinn Miners that can and will be the starters and your star players. After that, you have a bunch of guys that need to go out there and perform, and they need to ball out and they need to play and play well, or they may not even make this roster. So, very interesting, point here from Michael. And I was just curious, kind of on your thoughts about that, Jody. And then Paul.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough. There's not 32 good backups in this league, and Zach Wilson has starting experience and has a decent amount of starting experience, whether that was good or not. That's why I don't think if you release him in hopes of bringing him back on the practice squad, you'll never get him back. Someone will do the same thing Sean Payton did and say, we can rehab this guy. Look at the arm talent. We can change him. And when you get him off of waivers, you're going to get him for next to nothing. So it'll cost you nothing.
Yeah, because the Jets are paying him, I think, half his salary as well. So I think that's even they're going to get him for even cheaper.
Where Denver had a contract. Denver traded a 3rd or 6th round pick for him. You're only going to pick up his salary, and that's it, which is very low. So
yeah, because he's still on his rookie deal. And so Paul's coming in here and saying Veli's pushing Little Jordan. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that I do think, again, he is a Sean Payton guy, but I do think Veli, I think he's pushing more of that kind of training when it comes to the wide receiver room. Again, very deep wide receiver room, in my opinion. Just no stars, I would say, in that room right now. No one that has emerged as a star in that room right now. But I do think, Little Jordan Humphrey is a guy that we should keep an eye on as far as, a guy that may or may not make this roster, honestly. If Veli's is this good and is as good as everyone's saying he is, maybe that's kind of he's kind of in that kind of category where maybe not quite the Tim Patrick where, you might release Tim Patrick, but you may release somebody kind of further on down in the depth chart. And then we got Mr. Keith Brugman in here. I'm going to, I want to shout out Keith. Keith, I hope everything's going well. Hope the travel's going well. We really miss you. Can't wait to have you back on Tuesday. He said, hey, it's the late show, LOL. Thanks for holding down the fort, boys. Thank you, Keith, for everything. Again, we sure have missed you this week, but hey, late or not, we're still here on a Friday night rocking it out. I got the judge. You got one of the best out here. So we really do appreciate you, Keith, as well. You have Mr. Kenny coming in here and saying, I still think your first-round pick shouldn't be playing with and against backups. If he does well, it's against backups. If he does bad backups, you're not getting a fair evaluation, in my opinion, on him. That's Jody. Would you like to kind of say anything?
I just don't think there's no need to rush him. And I think the main reason why he's starting Stidham this first game is to keep Stidham's morale up. Stidham has to know deep down that this, whether he wins this job for the first couple of weeks or not, it's not long term. And I think if you were to go and give this to Nix right away, you've made a sham of this competition, and he's got to show that whether we think it's a sham and it's going to go to Nix or whatever, he's got to show that to Stidham that it's not. So, but I think it was very telling that he came out without being asked or nothing and announced Bo Nix as a starter this early for week 2, and in week 2 that that's your get right game for Denver. So with only 3 preseason games, so I think that's very telling as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's also telling that he did mention that Bo Nix may or may not see the final series of on Sunday. Actually, just it kind of depends on how Stidham does. We may see Bo Nix with the starters and may see him, behind that starting offensive line. So, very interesting points for sure all the way around. I want to get into Phil's comment here. It says, hey, will you guys be live after the game Sunday? Phil, I'm not sure about that. We will get back to you on that. I think that the plan right now is to go live after the games during the regular season. But again, we may surprise you and come live after the game. We shall see. Again, keep your notifications on because it could definitely happen, and we'll keep everybody updated on that. Roy saying I'll put up Bo Nix versus Drake May. Yeah, I mean Drake May looks pretty raw though. I mean, again, that was part of his evaluation to the draft was Drake May was a raw prospect and needs some time to grow. Bo Nix is more of a guy who can step in right now and be the guy. Paul coming in here and saying Stidham was yelling at coach during a red zone opportunity last year. I don't remember seeing that, Paul, but I mean, if that's true, I mean, Russell Wilson didn't yell back at Sean Payton. So, maybe that says something about Jarrett Stidham as well. So let me get in a couple more comments before we get into our next topic. Scott coming in here and saying, if Zach rehabs to Sean's standard throughout the year, could he be Bo's backup next year? Jody, you kind of discussed that a little bit. Do you think there's a chance that Zach Wilson maybe is not in the immediate plans for Sean Payton, but maybe more of a long term solution to back up Bo Nix?
yeah, I think so because one, it saves you if you get rid of Stidham this year, you save what, like 5 million. So it saves you money there. It also, if you think Sean Payton is his quarterback guru, at some point you would think that he could get the number 2 pick, Zach Wilson. It's just going to take time. I mean, you can just tell that he picked up a lot of, I don't know, bad habits, I guess, and things from a losing culture that just you don't get over overnight. But I think long term, he definitely can be your backup quarterback. To be honest, I mean, he's got more starting experience than Stidham already. So, I mean, he's really, in my opinion, the vet in the room. Not as many years in the league, but he started more. If it were up to me, Stidham would be the back, or Wilson would be the backup, and Stidham would be let go.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with that. I think that it's yet to be determined on who will be Bo Nix's backup for this year and going forward. I do think it's quite interesting that I think Sean Payton acquired Zach Wilson to be the guy longer term. I think, in my opinion, it depends on a lot of different scenarios, of course. But I kind of said that when they acquired Zach Wilson, I said he needs a year, at least a year, in my opinion, of football rehab. He could be that Sam Darnold. When Sam Darnold was with San Francisco last year, he turned it around. Now he's the starter in Minnesota. I'm not saying Zach Wilson's completely on that train right now, but I think that's kind of the more of the role you're going to see with Zach Wilson, I think, going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. I think the upside is there with Zach Wilson. I think it's always been there with Zach Wilson. Former first-round draft pick. The Broncos had to give up very little to get him. I do think it's worth a chance to at least see what Zach can do throughout this year, maybe sit behind Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham and make this roster. And then going into next year, maybe he's a little more comfortable in year 2 of the Sean Payton offense behind Bo Nix, of course. So very interesting question, Scott, and thank you once again for the question. And let's see, we got some more comments coming in here before we get to our agenda. Ernie saying you two are awesome. Thank you, Ernie. Really appreciate that. We've got a question here from Keith saying we've talked rookies, but what 2022 or 2023 draft class member needs to arrive? Jody, your opinion on the Broncos past couple of draft classes. Who do you think needs to arrive, and maybe needs to arrive relatively quickly in the preseason?
For me, it's two guys on defense in the secondary, Riley Moss and JL Skinner. Those are two guys that need to step up. I mean, you traded up to get Riley Moss last year. He did little to nothing, injured most of the year, and then saw very little time. And JL Skinner, he never seen any time. He was on practice squad all year or didn't dress. Um, and with you releasing Caden Stearns and Brandon Jones hurt, you really need him to step up. And those are two big positions of lack of depth at those two positions that you need guys to step up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you got to get something out of Marvin Mims. I think for sure. I think Marvin Mims is a guy that listen you traded up for, and same thing with Riley Moss as well. These two guys are guys you traded up for. You give up future draft capital to get. You were aggressive to get. I do think they're going to have to get something out of one or if not both of those guys, and that's something that I think has been this team's biggest problem over the last couple of years. I think ever since the 2021 draft class, where again, you had Baron Browning and Sertan and all those guys. I mean, you had like 4 or 5 starters come from that class. So, but other than that, 2022, 2023, you have gotten maybe one guy that's actually came out and been something for you. But other than that, you haven't got anything else to come out of that class. Greg Dulcich is another guy that needs to step up from that draft class. Wazirike, you drafted him pretty high. I do think he needs to come in and at least make this roster. And maybe he's not a guy that plays a lot this year, but if a guy like DJ Jones moves on in the offseason, maybe Wazirike can take over at nose tackle. It kind of sounds like that's where they want to play him anyways. But I do think that you need to get some sort of and more production from your draft class, past couple of draft classes going forward, including 2024 as well, if you want this team to be successful and push forward for the playoffs. And Kenny says, sorry.
I think Wazirike gets a little bit of a pass, in my opinion, just because he missed all last year. I know he needs to step up and prove some things, but we have never seen him play, so I think he gets a little bit of a pass.
Do you?
These other
I was going to say
now I agree with you, Mims for sure, because he was our first draft pick last year, and for whatever reason, Sean Payton did not want to play him, and he's really your explosion guy on offense. I mean, you've got big body wide receivers. You don't have really elite electric players besides him. Franklin, I don't think's ready yet. I mean, he's still dropping a lot of passes. He's kind of like Marvin Mims last year, but with the drops. So Mims is the one guy that you could throw a little 5-10 yard pass to, and he can take it to the house. These other guys, I don't think have that.
Yeah, Wazirike, I will say, go back to the Wazirike thing. I do think that there is pressure on him to make this roster, though, because I do think you've added a little bit more depth to that defensive line. Matt Henningsen, to name a few. I do think that, and they've invested, I think, was he a 4th round draft pick, I believe, when he was taken. So I think that you need to, he's got to make this roster. I think that there is pressure on him to do that. I know they don't want to rush him back, but I don't think you just want to stash him, all year long. Now, there's no, I think, real downside to, because I think he's pretty cheap, but you want to open the door for other guys to make this roster too. And if they're playing better than him, and you have less investment into them, then they're probably going to make the roster and make that jump. So I do think there's a little bit of pressure on Wazirike to make the roster this year to start. That's a different situation, because I think this defensive line, if healthy, is ready to go with Roach and with some of these other guys that they've added to the team. And
that's definitely, in my opinion, the strength of your defense. So
yeah.
I mean, he just adds solid depth there. It's not like you need him to step up, or you need Skinner, you need Moss, you almost need Marvin Mims.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think, and again, DeLeon Turner-Yell's another guy that, if could be a wild card and could step in from that 2022 draft class that maybe will help, you can get something out of him. Quick question, Jody. Do you think, since we're on these draft classes, do you think, since it does kind of impact these draft classes, that we've not seen these guys, like, even if it's just one guy, kind of emerge as a star? So I'll say this: if Nick Benito becomes a Batman edge rusher this year for the Denver Broncos, does that enhance their 2022 draft class at all?
Yeah, it does. I mean, he was really their first pick last year, and they took him over. There was left the right tackles out there when they needed a right tackle. So, yeah, they didn't get very much. Haven't had a double-digit sack guy since Von Miller. So, I mean, it's time for Denver to get one.
Yeah.
And it would be nice. I would like to see him. I've predicted for a while now. I think Baron Browning steps up and beats your Batman. I expect 11, 12 plus sacks this year. That's what he needs to do. It's a contract year. Someone needs to emerge to be a leader in this pass rushing room. With your D line, the way you improved it, I think you should see much better edge pressure this year.
Yeah, for sure. I pose that question because I do think if Marvin Mims steps up and he's that guy this year, he can prove that he can be an elite wide receiver. And if Nick Benito from that 2022 draft class, if he can merge and be that Batman edge rusher, suddenly I think you're looking at those draft classes a little bit different because those guys became elite players. Now if they just kind of became they're just kind of guys out there, then obviously I think you're a little bit more critical on those other draft picks. That you absolutely did make. All right, Jody, I think we're going to get into our agenda a little bit here. Let me get to a sponsorship real quick, and then I think we'll turn into our agenda. We've got a couple things, and then, of course, guys, keep coming up with the comments and questions that you guys have. We really appreciate it. But I have to tell you about our wonderful, great sponsor, Morgan Trinkets. With over 33 years of experience, they are your headquarters for Southwest pottery and jewelry, as well as estate gold at wholesale prices. Started in 1990, once a nationwide company. Now they do shows exclusively in northern Colorado and southern Wyoming. All their gold is real gold, 10, 14, or 18 karat gold, and all their silver is sterling silver. How do you find Morgan Trinkets? On Facebook by searching Morgan Trinkets today. If you catch Morgan Trinkets at one of their shows, they take all major credit cards. On Facebook, they take PayPal, and all orders are shipped free over $50. Check out Morgan Trinkets. That is Morgan Trinkets on Facebook today. Again, Morgan Trinkets, thank you guys for sponsoring the show as always. We really appreciate your sponsorship and love having you guys around. Pearl does great things over there, so make sure to go check them out today. All right, Jody, we got our agenda 2 out here. So I'll ask you this. We talked about the preseason a little bit. We kind of talked about some, offseason, kind of a little bit of everything right now. Let's dive into a little bit of the preseason. What are you hoping to take away from Sunday, first preseason game of the Denver Broncos season? Anything that what are kind of some things that you're looking to take away from that first preseason game, in your opinion?
There's a couple things I want to see. I don't care about scoring. I don't care about that. I want to see play calls in and out of the huddle. I want to see everything go crisp. I don't want to see any false starts, penalties like that from the offense. I'd like to see whoever's in there move the chains on third down. On defense, I want to see no missed tackles, sound football. Those are the things. I don't care about scoring right now. Those are the main things for me that I want to see, and everyone come out healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think health's one of the biggest things that you need to be looking at if you're the Denver Broncos. You do not want to get these guys hurt. As much as you want to push these guys, I think it's important to come out of this preseason. And for every team around the NFL, it's important to come out as healthy as you possibly can. For me, a couple points that I want to kind of point out from this first preseason game. I think every preseason game is different, but for me, it's growth in the quarterback room. I know that we talked about Bo Nix, and we all want Bo Nix to be that guy long term. But I do think it's a healthy competition if Jarrett Stidham comes out and he's ready to go from snap one. And I say that, and I say that, and I think that will help Bo Nix be a better quarterback if it's more of a competition. I don't want just Jarrett Stidham to come out and look bad, and then Bo Nix is just this hero all of a sudden. I don't think that really pushes Bo Nix enough, in my opinion. I want to see Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham kind of go at it as far as quarterbacks that are competing for starting job. So I want to see a healthy growth in the quarterback room. That's my first, kind of take away from the preseason game. If Bo Nix, and that's if Bo Nix gets a possible chance to be in there with the starters or not. I want to see Bo Nix ball. He should, if he's that guy, he will make that. You will see that he will pass the eye test regardless of where and who he's with. And if he's with the starters or the backups, Bo Nix will show, if he's that guy, he will show and emerge. He'll pass the eye test. He'll show that he can be your starter, and he should be your starter going forward. I think that is true with Jarrett Stidham as well. He will, enhance those backups a little bit, showing that he's a guy. Another point from me, another takeaway that I want to see more playmakers emerge in this offense. I think that, again, we talked about it with Bo Nix. It's something that you have to have with Bo Nix. You have to have those playmakers around him for him to be successful. That's running the football, that is catching the football, and that is doing it at an elite level. Right now, I don't think there's a clear, amount of playmakers on this roster right now. I think you have Marvin Mims. There's question marks about him. Cortland Sutton. There's still question marks about him. All these guys in this wide receiver room. Some of them are proven to a point, but nobody is a star, and nobody, in my opinion, has emerged as that playmaker that Bo Nix needs for the future. So I want to see that during not necessarily just this preseason game in particular, but just throughout the preseason. I want to see a couple guys kind of emerge and be those playmakers for Bo Nix or for Jarrett Stidham. We've heard a lot of hype of Josh Reynolds over the last couple weeks. I want to see it from Josh Reynolds. I don't want to see it just from training camp. I want to see it in a preseason game, real live action. I want to see that from Josh Reynolds or any of these wide receivers, just somebody to emerge. That's what I want to see as well. And here's the thing, also, the Broncos offensive line. That's something that I am kind of getting a little concerned about, and I was concerned about when they lost Lloyd Cushenberry. We've heard there's some concerns that the offensive line is not being as maybe sturdy as we thought. Again, it's a rumor and we haven't seen it in game yet. So I'm just kind of putting it out there, is that maybe we need to see this offensive line just come out and maybe shut everybody up and say, no, we're still the strongest unit on this offense side of the ball. I want to see that. I want to see that from whoever's starting. Does that Jarrett Stidham? That's Bo Nix. I want to see somebody from this offensive line continue to emerge, maybe emerge as a group, as a unit, instead of don't be the problem for this football team, but be the solution. And really, I think that will help Bo Nix and this running game get started. And the last one for me here is the defensive line. I want to see the consistent pressure and ability to enhance the rest of the defense. I really do think that that's your strongest positional player group on that side of the ball, on the defense side of the ball. I think that this defensive line, I think what a good defensive line in general can do is it can really enhance the rest of your defense and make your defense look better maybe than it would have if you had a bad defensive line. So in my opinion, get consistent pressure and stop the run. And I think that everything else will take care of itself, and it'll really push this defense in the right direction where it needs to go. So those are just a couple things that I want to see, either in this preseason game or just more, maybe the second preseason game, maybe the last preseason game. I just want to see it in general. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just this game or not. This game in particular, I would love to see it, but if not, I just want to see it and just in general during this preseason. I do think these are pretty big points to hit on. And so let's get to the comments here a little bit. Jody, do you have anything? First of all, do you have anything to say maybe on a couple of my points, maybe you agree or disagree on?
I do want to see this team show that what everyone's saying about being a 32nd ranked roster and you have no talent, and that's just all, clickbait. Just because you don't have elite names on this roster doesn't mean we don't have talent on this roster. And what really baffles me is last year they had this team ranked like 13th best roster, and you lost literally like 2 or 3 guys, and now you're the last ranked roster. It doesn't make any sense to me. And Sean Payton knows what he wants. You've seen Sean Payton get for wide receiver, for example. He got numbers out of other guys besides big name guys, so he can get that here. You got a quarterback now that can throw over the middle. I expect big things from Sutton and some of these other guys to step up. So that's what I want to say. I want to see them show, put the word out that this isn't going to be just an easy cakewalk win on whoever they play this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that maybe that's something in that locker room that they already have been shown. I'm sure Sean Payton has shown them the kind of the critics that are out there that this roster is one of the worst rosters in the NFL. Again, I do think that you did lose, quite a bit of important pieces last year. I mean, from last year's team, in my opinion, and that's I think Justin Simmons. Yeah, is he a Pro Bowler? No, but I think he gave you this ability that you need going forward. And that you don't necessarily have a safety right now, especially with Brandon Jones. I'm just concerned about that. And then with Russell Wilson, again, the fit wasn't there with Sean Payton, but I do think that they did take a little bit of a step back in certain positions on this roster. But hopefully they can go out there and somebody can emerge. Josie Jewell being gone, maybe this is Jonas Griffith's chance to possibly emerge on the defense side of the ball if he stays healthy. So that's just kind of something to keep an eye on as well. Kenny coming in here and saying, simple for me, run game and defense. I can't evaluate next week 1 with backups. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Kenny. I mean, but I do think that's true to a point, but I do think you can evaluate Nick just in general. If he really stands out, when he's playing against backups, that I do think that it's clear that he is the guy. He could be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. I don't think it's just when he's out there with the starters. Same thing with Jarrett Stidham. Same thing with Zach Wilson. They need to prove that they belong, regardless if they're they're on the field with. That's just kind of my perspective. But I think that's what the coaching staff would probably agree upon that as well. Got Mr. Ernie Mays coming in here. Oh, go ahead, Jody. Were you going to say something?
What I want to see with Nix, and I don't care if it's with the 1s, the 2s, or the 3s, I want to see him get the play call in, get out of the huddle, not having to waste timeouts because we don't have the right people in, know who's supposed to be in there. And then I want to see I want to see completions, but I want to more. I want to see fundamentals, dropbacks. Does he get the ball off? Is he sitting in the pocket, just holding it and not knowing where to go with it? Does he step up in the pocket? Stuff like that. I don't care if he goes 4 for 5 for 15 yards or whatever. Is he getting the ball off because there's no one deep downfield? And he's checking it to the right person. That's what I want to see. That's more what I want to see. I don't necessarily care if he goes out and throws a deep bomb and it's connected and we score a touchdown. I don't care about that.
Yeah, I agree upon that. I want to see that he fits and he belongs with this offense and is a guy that Sean Payton can get along with and they can move forward with this. Again, there's an investment there with Sean Payton. But I do think that with Bo Nix, again, I agree with you, Jody. I don't need to see maybe the biggest highlight in the world. I just need to see him be patient in the pocket. Everything that Sean Payton wants that Russell Wilson didn't do. That's what I want to see out of Bo Nix. And I want to see that in this offense and see what he can do with it. Patience in the pocket awareness, getting rid of the football quickly, putting it over the middle of the field, able to dish it out to, his running backs or to his wide receivers, for, something where Russell Wilson necessarily didn't do the best job I thought last year was getting the ball out, as quickly as maybe Bo Nix would, or getting it out to his running backs and it being on point, not being off target with his throws, some of those shorter throws. Russell Wilson still has one of the best deep balls in the game, but when it came to throwing in other places, in my opinion, on the field, sometimes accuracy just wasn't quite there. We have Mr. Ernie Mays coming in here, says the running game, the quarterback, defense, and no injuries. 100% agree there, Ernie. And again, injuries are a big thing. Jody, did you have something to say?
And I don't want deer in the headlights like Drew Lock was last night. I mean,
no.
He rolled out and he missed Malik Neighbors on an easy deep pass and then just kind of threw it out of bounds. He wasn't even looking when he was the only receiver out that way. And then that interception, I don't know where he was even going with that pass. I don't want to see that. I don't care if the balls are a little bit high or he's off a little bit. If he's throwing it in the right direction and he's making the right read, all that will come with time because I think nerves are going to be his first NFL playing action or time, stuff like that. I just want to see the right reads and stuff. But to like Locke last night, Locke looked like he was a rookie last night.
Yeah. That's why I was very critical on Drew Lock. Again, Drew Lock, there was once upon a time there was hype on Drew Lock, but I do think there's something to be said where Geno Smith beat him out in Seattle fair and square, and I do think that he's not necessarily your ideal backup quarterback, a guy that you can necessarily kind of count on. That's why I kind of in our group message today, I told Mr. Kenny Kirkpatrick that I would go out there and probably go get after like a Ryan Tannehill, maybe a guy that he has a high floor and a guy who can possibly come in and take over for Daniel Jones if he would go down, because I don't know about Drew Lock. He's just not consistent enough. Scott coming in here and saying the minimal penalties, line of scrimmage, dominance on both sides of the ball. Yeah, absolutely. But I do think we have to keep that in mind that these starters and these guys are just not going to be out there, for a ton. I believe Sean Payton said the starters are going to be out there to 15 to 20 plays. I think that's what he said with Jarrett Stidham and the rest of the starters. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's the phases. It's the plays. It's not necessarily going to be the quarters that these guys are out there for. So we won't get to see the starters, unfortunately, for a long period of time. So I think time eventually we'll get to see that. Time will be on their side. And probably game 2, they'll probably play a little bit more than game 1. Michael Ronquillo coming in here and saying, get the NFL preseason games to 2 games and add 2 NFL buys and an extra NFL game. I am done with 3 NFL preseason games. Let's get it done. Jody, your opinion, I just want to get your opinion really quickly on this. Do you think that the NFL needs to go away from 3 preseason games and add an extra maybe another extra game during the season and maybe another bye? Or do you think that the formula right now is the correct one?
I'm fine with the way it is, but it's inevitable that they're going to go to 18 games. It's another. You get 18 weeks and a second bye. That gives you another 2 weeks of football, and that's huge for ratings and stuff. So, I mean, that's where it's going to go. I do see a bye going away because of that. It does. If you're low, if you're on the bubble of 53, it kind of hurts you a little bit, but it is what it is. You're going to have to stand out like Vele is in training camp and make your presence known there. That's about all you're going to be able to do. Because this is about money, and another preseason game or another regular season game is making hand over fist more money than what a preseason game does. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I think I don't want to see the preseason games go away in total because I do think that it does. I think if you got rid of the preseason games, I'm afraid that we're going to get to the point where players are going to start getting hurt a little bit more because you go from practice and quote unquote scrimmage to a game, full time game. There might be a chance that players might get hurt a little bit more. So that's why I do think the preseason, is more on the player side of things. These guys get a chance to earn their jobs. We have to keep that in mind. A lot of these guys are trying to earn jobs. I mean, they're trying to get on rosters, 53-man rosters, and do everything they possibly can to get to this point. And they work their butts off all off season long to get to this point, and most of their lives to get to be pros in the NFL. So while I do agree with you that eventually we may get to this point, I am not on board with it because I do think that I want to see these guys, the feel-good stories, these guys that maybe, no one's talking about that earns a roster spot maybe the last game. We're kind of getting away from that. And it's just something that I just don't like to see because I want to see those guys that didn't have a chance and maybe haven't had a ton of chances that, to earn a chance and be that guy in the NFL and really work towards that. So I do agree, though, eventually we probably will get to that point, but I don't like it. Pearl coming in here and said, I frankly like preseason. It gives us a good look at various players. See, I'm on Pearl's side. I think more on that side. I like to see the preseason games. I know the third preseason game really doesn't mean a lot, but I do think that it means a lot to the players. It means a lot to the coaches, and you get a chance to see more of these guys. Phil coming in here and saying, I want to see Williams run over people. Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to see the old Javonte back, and that's actually something that I want to watch as well. And I want to see how the run game going. And maybe does anybody emerge from that running back room? Is that Javonte? Is that Jaleel McLaughlin? We've seen a lot of different headlines and kind of reports out there about those two in particular. In my opinion, it'd be interesting to see if any of those guys maybe emerge or any one of those guys in the running back room emerge. Maybe it's Estime, maybe it's P. Ryan. A couple guys kind of playing for the job as well. We got Keith Brugman coming in here and saying, I'm ready. It's time. We need to make a serious playoff push at the playoffs. Do we? Jody, I'll let you answer that. Do you think the Broncos make a strong and serious playoff push this season?
I'm not sure about that, but I do think. Well, what are they predicting? 5? I think 5 is low. We won 8 games last year. We won 8 games last year with a quarterback that couldn't run Sean Payton's offense. We had a lot of things not go right, and we still won 8 games. Sean Payton is going to put out a competitive team, and I expect anywhere from 8 to 10 wins, and if that gets you in, that gets you in. So a 5.5, 5.5, that's way too low for me. Are we pushing for the playoffs? I don't necessarily know, but we at the end of the year might need that last win to get in. So
Yeah, no, I in my opinion, I want this team to make the playoffs, and like this, everybody wants this team to make the playoffs. But I do think that this team did take a little bit of a step back from a roster standpoint this season, and I think you have a bunch of guys on contracts that need to perform. And you have a lot of guys that are on 1-year deals, so you need these guys to emerge and to really show that they deserve to be on this roster. I mean, Baron Browning, we can go around, the kind of around the table here a little bit of guys that are on 1-year deals. Cortland Sutton, I don't think Cortland Sutton is for sure thing he's on this roster next year. I think he's going to have to ball out a little bit as well. The guaranteed money is starting to go away for him. And that was a little bit of an issue for him this year, and that's why it's good to see both Broncos and Cortland come together and agree upon something. But he's a guy that's not locked to make this roster long term. Greg Dulcich, I mean, how many more times are you going to have him keep getting hurt? So Javonte Williams, he's going to be a free agent. So in my opinion, I will say I think this team is. I think they're right. I think I agree with you, Jody. I think over 5.5 is where I would bet them at. I think more of that 7 kind of win range is kind of where I'm at. 7-8 wins with this team yet again. I think Sean Payton as your head coach, I think emerges and helps you in the winning category, in my opinion. So I would be very interested to see where this roster goes. But Sean Payton's never lost more than 7 games, so. I don't think or never won less than 7 games, I should say, in my opinion. So, and just in general, so I don't think that I don't see that changing right now. I think that Sean Payton helps your floor a little bit there. Pro coming in here and saying 100% time, and I'm getting real old too. No, Pro, you're very young, and again, hopefully this team, we can see this team be in the Super Bowl and be in the playoffs and be competitive for a very long time. Paul says, yes, the game is one of the trenches. I couldn't agree more. Kenny saying, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. From an outside perspective, I am nervous Stidham starts week 1 in Seattle, especially if he plays well enough on Sunday. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely possible, but I do think that, like we talked about a little bit, I do think that, Sean Payton is going to give Bo Nix every chance that he possibly can to be that guy. We shall see. I don't think that playing Jarrett Stidham in Seattle is going to have too much of an effect on him right now. But again, we will find out. I think we can get our first taste of that on Sunday, how he handling an NFL offense and just what he does, differently than what Jarrett Stidham does. Roy coming in here and saying, like Kubiak said, we're fixing to find out. Absolutely, Roy. I couldn't agree with you more on that one. Pearl says, do not think you have to worry. Not sure who she must be replying to somebody. Kenny says, I believe Peyton said he wants to compete. He should want to contend. Stidham, you compete. Next, you have a chance to contend. If he was to become last year's CJ Stroud. Yeah, I mean, again, there's just not a lot of CJ Strouds out there, though, I will say. But I will say I think Bo Nix does give you the best opportunity. We have kind of seen what Stidham is about. If he has changed and emerged, then maybe we'll find out on Sunday. But I do think Bo Nix probably gives you the best opportunity to win, in my opinion. Ernie May says 2 preseason games, 18-week schedule. It will happen. Go Broncos Country only. Michael Ronquillo saying running back Audrey Estime is going to run you over anybody. Phil coming in here and says they will increase from 53 to 55 if they go to 18 games. Michael Ronquillo saying, we already got to that. Ernie May says, yes, we get 10 or more wins, get into the playoffs. We go big. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's the hope. Michael Ronquillo is coming in here and saying, yet again, 61 career starts for Bo Nix. Yeah, that's why I think that he, again, his floor is more raised than any quarterback in this class because of just the amount of games he's played and the amount of experience he has. I don't think that's going to phase him at all, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see, though. There is a jump from the college level to the pros. So I do think that we're going to have to see if he does make that jump and how smooth he makes that jump. All right, Jody, we have one more agenda to go through. I did kind of, talk about it with you earlier. Do you want to go the player route or position route? Because I have the agenda 3. It says, besides quarterback position, what other positions are we want to keep an eye on? Do you want to hit that, or do you want to hit the players? Is there any particular players that you want to keep an eye on, or positional groups? You're muted.
We can go players. There's,
Okay.
like I said earlier, there's the two main ones for me is Riley Moss. Riley Moss has to step up. He didn't do nothing last year. We moved up to get him, and he did little to nothing. And then JL Skinner's got to do something. We have literally no depth at safety right now. He needs to stay healthy, and he needs to prove that he can be a viable starter in this league. Those are the two big ones for me. The other one that I'm really interested in is who wins this starting center job. Someone needs to grab it and take hold of it. And when you got, like they say, if you got three quarterbacks, you don't have any. You've got to whoever wins this center job needs to win it and win it fast, so they can build a rapport with whatever quarterback is picked. And because he does call out protections and different things, that's going to be something that is sorely missed from Lloyd Cushenberry. Whether you thought he struggled or whatever, he was the guy calling out line calls and blitzes.
Oh, I think Jody just froze on us. Okay, sounds like Jody was naming off a couple of his guys. He was looking at to keep an eye on. I did list my guys on Tuesday. So again, I think the running back position. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin are two guys that I want to see. I want to see this running game because and see if any of these guys emerge, because I want to see just how well the Broncos can run the football. And I think that they're going to have to do that if Bo Nix is going to be successful. I think there's no way around it. I think run the football, I think, can do a ton for you and do a ton for your rookie quarterback or Jarrett Stidham. Either one of those guys, this team's going to have to run the football better than they did last year. That's just where it's at. I know that a lot of us aren't high on Russell Wilson. I don't think it was all on Russell Wilson last year from what happened. I know that he didn't fit Sean Payton's system very good. I understand that. But I do think that this team not running the football effectively and efficiently like they should have, and I do think that hurt their offense. And we've seen that last year in the Cleveland Browns game when they had their best running game of the season, their offense was clicking against one of the top defenses in the league at that point in time. So I do think that running the football is going to be very critical. Those are two guys, in Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, that I'm looking at and saying one of those two guys need to emerge. I'm hoping it's Javonte, and I'm hoping, because I do think that there is upside there. And I do think if he's healthy and if he's the same Javonte from a couple years ago, I do think the Broncos have something there. Maybe it's a combination of Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, but I think there's going to be some little bit of pressure on the running game this year, to run the ball better than they ever have. And you've invested into that, not only just the running back room that you have right now, but also on this offensive line with Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey. Those are two guys that are more run blocking linemen than they are in the passing game. So pass blocking, I should say. So I'm going to say that the running backs, two running backs, I think that are ahead in the depth chart, in my opinion. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, two guys that I'm watching out for in this football game, because I think it's going to be huge for the Broncos offense going forward. So sorry, Jody, you kind of cut out. What other players did you have that you were keeping an eye out for?
Those are the three big ones for me. Maybe one other one is, who is Jonas Griffith? He was given the first shot a couple years ago before his injuries over Alex Singleton. Can he get back to that form? That's another position that's very weak in depth. They need him to stay healthy, and take that job. If they can get Jonas Griffith 2 years ago before the injury, I think that makes this defense a lot better and puts to bed some of the questions of who's going to cover tight end and some different things, because I think he's got the speed, for as big as he is, to cover those type of people.
Yeah, I did have Jonas Griffith on my list as well as a guy that I'm watching. There's about a amount of players that I'm watching. Honestly, my list isn't really that short, so I could probably be here all day if I had a list of every player that I'm actually watching out there, and I want to see emerge in this first preseason game. I think Jonas Griffith is a guy as well. I had him on my list. I think Zach Wilson, to a certain degree, in my opinion, as well. He just, again, needs to prove that he's going to have to dominate against the third stringers if he wants to make this roster. If he does not perform against the third stringers out there, I do not know that I want him on this roster. And I don't know that he will make this roster. And because what does that say about Zach Wilson? I know he's learning this offense, but former first-round draft pick, the talent's there. That should be able to emerge over the third stringers. And of course, we're always watching Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix as well. Those are two guys that are going to be very, very important for this team to keep an eye out for. But there's honestly, we can go through this whole roster and say a number of these guys are guys that we need to be keeping an eye on because they're all fighting for starting jobs, in my opinion. Look how many different competitions are out there. I mean, all the way from punter, to safety, to cornerback, to running back. I mean, quarterback. I mean, there's just a lot of different position battles out there. Wide receiver. The wide receiver room is so deep. Who's going to be a guy? Who's that group of guys that emerges and separates themselves from the guys that aren't going to emerge and maybe won't be on this roster or be kind of out on the practice so it's just like that's just kind of where I'm at is this whole roster needs to kind of prove themselves in my opinion. So it's just kind of where we're at. But Jody, we're coming up on the hour. Again, I'm going to kind of give your final thoughts, maybe a prediction or two. What do you think is going to end up happening on Sunday? But I really appreciate you joining me tonight. Appreciate everybody in the posse for joining us tonight as well. You guys were fantastic and awesome. But Jody, your final thoughts about Sunday and just maybe any predictions that you have. Oh, you there, Jody?
I'm there. Sorry about that.
No, all good.
We're good. Just my final thoughts. I'm ready for Sunday. It's the best time of the year. We're all football fans and ready to see what Nix can show. I'm ready for him to put to bed some of the haters and doubters. And anytime you want to hop on the train, Kenny, the train's filling up.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm with Kenny. I want to see it before I believe it, type of thing. But I mean, again, I've been all over Bo Nix, as far as a guy that I thought could fit in the system before the Broncos even drafted him. So, I do hope that my final thoughts, kind of just in general, is first and foremost, again, want to thank everybody in the posse for joining us tonight. Keith, we miss you. My final thoughts on the game per se would be let's see it. I'm ready to see football. I'm ready to see this team perform. There's a lot of different positional player battles out there that we've got to see. We've got to see a couple guys emerge. But I'm very, very curious on who emerges. There might be a couple surprises in there that a couple guys that we didn't think would kind of emerge. But I think that it's gonna be very interesting, and I'm very excited to see just the Broncos back on the field again, new uniforms again. Kind of a new identity, new team. Let's see, where this team's at, going forward. But I want to thank everybody in the posse for joining us tonight. Kenny, Pearl, Michael, Phil, Scott, everybody, Ernie that joined us tonight. Everybody that was here joining us tonight live, and for everybody that's watching after we went live. Really appreciate you guys joining us. We will see about Sunday. I'm not sure if we're going to have a show Sunday. Stay tuned for that for sure. So we got Paul here saying, as usual, Broncos beat the Packers. Yeah, well, hopefully. We're very hopeful for that. But again, we're not trying to, go and try to get wins. We're not trying to stack wins quite yet. We're just trying to see who emerges on this roster. I do want to get Kenny's one more question in there before we go. He says, what does it say about the front office trading picks and releasing Wilson? Teams that rebuild win 2 and 3 in drafts. Win days 2 and 3 in drafts, I think is what he's trying to say. But Jody, I'm going to let you take that question really quickly. I know you just gave your final thoughts, but I wanted to get Kenny's question in there.
Well, I agree with him, other than this was a different coach when Wilson was brought here. I do think if George Payton had to do it over again, he either does one or two things. He either doesn't trade for Wilson, or he definitely finds a different head coach than Nathaniel Hackett to pair with Wilson. At the time, I thought it was a great signing. I still think Russell Wilson has things to offer. Nathaniel Hackett was a clown show, and that just didn't go well. And Sean Payton is stubborn, old school, and it was pretty obvious from the very beginning he was not going to adjust or fully adjust to what Russell Wilson did best. And it was never going to work out. Russ was either going to learn to stand in the pocket, throw from the pocket, and throw over the middle, or he was going to have to, rekindle 2012, 2013 Russell Wilson and carry this team to a Super Bowl to be a Bronco next year. Or be a Bronco this year, which didn't happen. So, I give ownership credit the fact that they ate that amount of money to give Sean Payton what he thinks he needs to run an efficient offense.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that you made a lot of great points. I think he was saying Zach Wilson. I don't know what Kenny's was
Zach
saying.
Wilson. I think Zach Wilson was just it was a low. I mean, you gave up a 6th rounder.
Yeah.
It cost you basically nothing, and it was insurance in case you were unable to get a quarterback that you liked. I mean, you got the 6th quarterback in the first round, and all it took was one other team to jump in front of you, and Nix is gone. And then where are you at? You're in rounds. You didn't have a 2nd or 3rd, so what are you in round 4? You're in round 4 trying to get a quarterback, and I don't know that he wanted to go that route. So he was in insurance in case you didn't end up with what quarterback you had as a 1st-round grade.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, real quickly on my, I want to touch on this a little bit too. I don't know that Zach Wilson was, per se that safety blanket if they didn't get Bo Nix. I do think that Sean Payton saw upside in Zach Wilson. He's seen that you have to give up a 6th-round draft pick for a guy a couple years ago that was a former 1st-round draft pick and who went into New York. What did the Jets do worse? Probably worse than any organization around the NFL. Develop quarterbacks. Zach Wilson came from a small community going to New York and had to be, again, the expectation was he was that guy. And so I think that coming to Denver, I think getting a chance to sit behind Stidham and Nix, I think will help Zach Wilson going forward. And I think Sean Payton seen the upside in Zach Wilson. I think that's why he acquired him. I don't know that he was a safety blanket just because where he was coming off of one of the worst QBR ratings around the NFL. And just one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL just in general over the last couple of years. So, but I do think that there was upside there, and I think a lot of people, including Sean Payton and everybody in that Broncos organization, believes Zach Wilson still has some sort of upside with him as well. So, but again, I want to give my just want to thank Michael Ronquillo for sending stars. Michael, really appreciate it once again. Again, everybody who sent stars tonight, everybody who had commented, everybody who sent questions into us, we really appreciate you. And again, we hope that you will watch Sunday's game, and we will, again, feel very good about your Denver Broncos. We will see if we will be on Sunday. Again, keep your notifications turned on. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share, guys. We are growing here pretty soon. If we don't do it this Sunday, relatively here soon, we will be doing three shows a week. Again, adding a post-game show right after the game. And again, those guys are fun. Those shows are fun, guys. You don't want to miss out. But for me, for the Judge Jody, thank you for doing everything tonight. And, for us and giving your analysis, like as always, you're great. Everybody in the posse, you guys are just wonderful. Roundup royalty. Again, there's nothing else like it. Please like, share, subscribe. Really appreciate it. We will be back. Not sure if it'll be Sunday or Tuesday. We will be back better than ever. But appreciate everybody in the posse. Enjoy the game Sunday. And as always, go Broncos.